There is something deeply profound in the way we look at suffering. Most people run from it. They resist it, they fear it, they fight it. But the ancient teachings remind us, suffering is not the enemy, it is the messenger. It is the mirror, and in this life, the one thing guaranteed is that suffering will touch every one of us. Not because life is cruel, but because life is honest. You see, we spend our days building an image of who we are. This idea of a self, we call it me, my story, my journey, my pain, my happiness. But what if that self is not solid? What if it is not permanent? What if it is only a shadow, a passing wave on the surface of something much deeper? When someone asks, what happens after death? The real question beneath it is, what am I that continues or disappears? And to answer that, we must first understand what we are now. In the Buddhist view, we are not a fixed self, we are a flow, a process, a flame passing from one candle to another. The body will fall away, the thoughts will dissolve, but the consequences of our actions, the energy of our intentions, that moves forward. So what is death? It is not an ending, it is a transition, and suffering is the teacher that helps us prepare for that transition. It strips away what is false. It shows us what is real. Every hardship, every loss, every heartbreak, these are not punishments. They are invitations to let go of attachment, let go of ego, let go of the illusion that we are separate, that we are in control, that we are permanent. To live fully is to die to the false self every day, to meet the pain not with resistance, but with stillness, to ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? The more we learn to sit with suffering, the more we discover the self that is beyond it, the one that is not shaken by life or death, the one that has always been watching quietly. So when death comes, it is not something to fear, it is not darkness, it is a return to source, a return to silence. And if we have lived with awareness, we meet that silence not as strangers, but as something we've always known. The journey is not to escape suffering. The journey is to transcend the self that clings to it. Because only then are we free, and only then do we truly understand what follows. Death is not an end, it is the unfolding of what we've been all along. Suffering is often misunderstood. Most people see it as something to be avoided, escaped, or fought against. But in truth, suffering is one of the greatest teachers we will ever encounter. It does not come to punish us, it comes to awaken us. Each painful experience we face holds a hidden lesson, a deeper message waiting to be heard, not with our ears, but with our awareness. The more we resist it, the louder it becomes. But when we stop running and begin to face it with stillness, something begins to shift inside. In the Buddhist view, suffering is not just a part of life. It is an essential part of understanding life. It shines a light on the illusions we cling to. It exposes the fragility of the ego, the temporary nature of our desires, and the emptiness of the things we once thought would make us whole. This is why suffering is not our enemy. It is the gateway to awakening. Without it, we would remain asleep in our comfort, unaware of the deeper truths beneath the surface. When we suffer, we are given a choice, to harden or to open. Many people harden, they build walls, numb their emotions, or blame the world. But those who choose to open, who allow suffering to pass through them, instead of clinging to it, begin to transform. They start to see that pain is not something happening to them, but something moving through them. In that space of awareness, they begin to dissolve the boundaries of the false self. The teachings are clear. Suffering is a mirror. It reflects our attachments, our expectations, and our fears. But it also points us toward the path of freedom. Every time we embrace suffering without judgment, we take a step closer to understanding who we truly are, beyond the identity, beyond the story, beyond the illusions we carry. So suffering is not something to fear, it is something to understand, because in its presence, we are offered the rarest of opportunities to see clearly, to live more deeply, and to begin the journey of returning to the self that does not suffer, the self that simply is. We often believe that there is a solid, unchanging self, guiding our every action, a core identity that remains the same through time. We say, "This is who I am," and we build our lives around this belief. But when we look closely, when we observe ourselves, honestly in moments of silence, we begin to see that what we call the self is not fixed at all. It changes with mood, with memory, with time, with circumstances. It shifts like the wind, and yet we cling to it as if it were permanent. From the Buddhist perspective, the self is not a thing, but a process. It is not a solid object, but a stream of experiences, thoughts, emotions, sensations, and habits, arising and fading continuously. Just as a flame appears steady, but is constantly moving, the self is fluid, not static. This realization is powerful because it breaks the illusion that we are trapped in one identity or one story. We begin to see that what suffers is not the true self, but the imagined one, the self made up of roles, labels, and attachment. Much of our suffering comes from trying to protect or preserve this imagined self. We defend our pride, our name, our possessions, our image. But all of these are temporary, and the more tightly we hold on, the more we feel pain when life inevitably changes. The teachings invite us to loosen that grip, to question this sense of I and mine, and in doing so, something unexpected happens. We become lighter, we become freer, the weight of the ego begins to lift. When we understand that we are not a fixed self, we are no longer bound by the past. We are not our mistakes, not our trauma, not our achievements either. We are the awareness beneath it all, the stillness that watches thoughts come and go, the silence that holds every sound, every breath. This awareness is not affected by suffering, it simply observes it. So what continues after death is not the name or the face, but the energy shaped by how we lived, how we responded, how we let go. The self, as we know it, fades, but awareness, that quiet presence, remains untouched. When people think of death, they often imagine a final end, a sudden stop to everything they've ever known or loved. That idea brings fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. But if we begin to shift our understanding, even slightly, we see that death is not an end. It is a continuation. It is not destruction, but transformation. Just as night follows day, and the tide returns to the shore, death is part of the same cycle that governs all of life. In the Buddhist view, this cycle is not something to escape from, but something to understand deeply. What dies is the form, the body, the thoughts, the memories, but not the essence. The self we think we are, the collection of stories and roles, dissolves. Yet what continues is the movement of energy, the imprint of our actions, the residue of our choices. Like a flame lighting another candle, there is no exact transfer, but there is continuity. This is what is known as karma, not punishment or reward, but the unfolding of cause and effect. Death, then, is a moment of transition. It is not something to resist, but to prepare for with awareness. Every action we take, every thought we cultivate, every attachment we release, shapes the quality of that transition. And this is where suffering comes in as a teacher. Because through suffering, we learn how to let go. We learn how to meet impermanence with grace, rather than fear. We are shown again and again that nothing lasts. And in that realization we become more present, more humble, more free. By facing the smaller deaths in life, the end of relationships, the loss of status, the fading of youth, we begin to prepare for the final letting go. And if we have walked the path of awareness, we will not meet death as strangers. We will meet it as something familiar, something natural, something not separate from life, but intertwined with it. So death does not have to be a dark unknown. It can be a return to stillness, a return to the space beyond the identity. And when we live with that understanding, we no longer waste time clinging to what will pass. We begin to live more fully, more honestly, more freely, ready not just for life, but for whatever comes after. Letting go is perhaps one of the most difficult, yet most liberating acts we can ever learn. The mind clings. It holds tightly to people, to memories, to achievements, to pain, even to ideas of who we believe we are. This clinging is natural, but it is also the root of much of our suffering. We want things to stay the same, we want pleasure to last, and pain to disappear. But life doesn't follow our wants. It moves, shifts, evolves and ends, whether we are ready or not. The teachings do not ask us to reject life, but to see it clearly. Everything is impermanent. Everything that arises will eventually pass. This is not a reason for despair. It is the doorway to peace. When we begin to let go of the illusion of control, we discover a deeper sense of trust. We no longer try to hold the river in our hands. We learn to flow with it. Ego is the strongest force that resists this truth. It says, I must succeed, I must be right, I must be remembered. But ego is fragile. It depends on external validation. It feeds on attachment. And every time life removes one of the things it clings to, we feel the suffering. But the suffering is not from the loss. It's from the resistance. The pain is in the holding, not in the release. To truly prepare for death, and to truly live with presence, we must train ourselves to let go, again and again. Let go of resentment. Let go of expectation. Let go of needing life to be different than it is. This doesn't mean giving up. It means softening our grip. It means choosing freedom over control. And as we practice this in daily life, we become more adaptable, more open and more at peace. Letting go is not something that happens once. It is a daily practice. It is the quiet discipline of surrender. And each time we do it, even in the smallest ways, we move closer to the part of us that doesn't cling, the part that watches without judgment, that accepts without fear. In that space, we are no longer ruled by life or death. We simply flow with what is. When suffering appears, the natural instinct is to turn away, to distract ourselves, to numb the pain, or blame something outside of us. But this only deepens the cycle. The more we avoid suffering, the more it grows in the shadows. Yet if we choose to pause, to breathe, and to simply observe what is arising within us, we begin to discover something extraordinary. Awareness, pure quiet awareness, is not touched by suffering. It sees everything, feels everything, but remains unmoved. It is the eye in the storm. This awareness is not the same as thinking about pain or analyzing it. It is the ability to sit with discomfort, to hold it gently, without judgment or resistance. When we do this, suffering begins to lose its power. It no longer drags us into fear, into reaction, into identity. Instead, it becomes a passing visitor, something that moves through us, not something we become. This is the essence of presence, and it is in presence that the deepest healing begins. Through this way of being, we no longer say, I am suffering. Instead, we say, there is suffering. That simple shift changes everything. It separates the pain from the identity. It reveals that the pain is temporary, but the awareness watching it is constant. That awareness is who we truly are, not the story, not the emotion, not the thought, but the one who witnesses it all. The more we strengthen this awareness, the more resilient we become. Life may still bring challenges, but we meet them with clarity rather than fear. We begin to understand that suffering is not something to run from, but something to listen to. It teaches us where we are holding on, where we are blind, where we are still asleep. And through presence, it becomes a tool for awakening. With time, we develop a quiet confidence, not based on control, but on understanding. We trust that no matter what comes, there is a stillness within us that remains untouched. That stillness is not cold or distant. It is deeply compassionate, deeply alive. It is the space in which transformation happens, where even suffering becomes sacred. And it is in that space we begin to touch a freedom that cannot be shaken. Life constantly reminds us that everything is temporary. Our roles, our possessions, our relationships, even our very breaths. But instead of letting this truth defeat us, it can become the very force that wakes us up. When we live with the awareness that nothing lasts forever, we start to live with more intention. We stop wasting time. We stop numbing ourselves with distractions. And we begin to understand that the way we live each moment is also how we prepare for death. Not with fear, but with presence. Most people delay awareness. They say, I'll think about these deeper questions later, after success, after family, after retirement. But what if that later never comes? The wise understand that preparation for death is not about rituals or beliefs. It's about how we show up right now. Are we present? Are we kind? Are we conscious of our actions, our words, our thoughts? These questions matter, not only because they shape this life, but because they shape what comes after. Every time we respond to suffering with patience, every time we let go of ego, just a little, every time we stay grounded in awareness, rather than reaction, we are practicing, not for something far away, but for the most important transition we will ever face. And it is not a gloomy practice. It is joyful, because the more we let go, the lighter we become. The more we see through the illusions of fear and control, the more we live with authenticity. This kind of living is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is steady. It is a daily discipline of turning inward, of asking, who am I without this anger? Who am I without this fear? Who am I beyond the story? And slowly the answers begin to arise, not from the mind, but from the silence behind it. That silence becomes a friend, a guide, a resting place. So when death finally comes, it is not a stranger knocking on the door. It is a familiar presence. We do not resist it, because we have already practiced letting go. We do not fear it, because we have met it in small ways every day. And in that final moment, we do not fall, we simply return.